you have to take some form of definitive action. And I do not mean just reading a book or listening to podcasts. And you have to take some sort of action if you expect to achieve the results that you're looking for. You've got to put yourself in a little bit of an uncomfortable position. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you take action and you have that mentality, I promise you, you will see success.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we're so pleased to have Ricardo Torres. Ricardo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a true pleasure.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Ricardo, for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. To start with, can you tell the listeners a little bit about your background and how long you were in your initial career?
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm an active duty Air Force pilot stationed at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. I've been in the Air Force for about 9 years now. And prior to that, I worked at Citigroup in the mortgage division, working non-client facing, just kind of back office type work, research work regarding mortgage accounts. Went to University of South Florida in Tampa. And then prior to that, went to high school in all sorts of different locations. My father was in the military, so I'm kind of a little bit of a military brat. So it kind of came full circle for me. So that's a quick Reader's Digest on the last couple of decades. And still here at Davis-Monthan, where I've been stationed for a couple of years, and I'll ride out the remainder of my tenure for the Air Force over the next couple of years here.
Excellent. Well, yeah. And what are you transitioning into as you transition out of the Air Force into what field?
Yeah, so I'm busy along with my business partner, who, by the way, flies the F-16 out of Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. So we met at undergraduate pilot training, and we had a ball there. Always shared an interest in finances, 401ks, IRAs, and then we decided that we would explore different options to expand our horizons and use some economies of scale. Currently, we're working on a lot of different things, though we got our start with this concept of we would buy one single family residence every year for the next 20 years. You probably heard this. And then at the end of 20 years, we'll own 20 houses, and each of I'll have 10, he'll have 10, and we'll be cash flowing like bosses. And we'll live the rest of our days in a really good spot and a really good location. We quickly learned that economies of scale weren't as compatible with that methodology as we expected, as we wanted. And so we pivoted to multifamily, and we got our start in Tucson about 2 years ago with a 14-unit apartment complex. Nice. And since then, we have expanded and syndicated, as well as co-sponsored multiple different deals. We're also co-owners of a laundromat here in Tucson. So super excited. That's a long way to answer your question, but started in multifamily, rooted in multifamily, and we're expanding our horizons to purchasing businesses that are already performing.
That's great. Mainly in the Southwest is where you're focused, or?
No, the Southwest, or here in Tucson, is our asset, the laundromat, but we have a primary focus in the Southeast. So we have 71 units in Columbia, South Carolina. We have co-ownership in 92 in San Antonio, Texas. And then we have ownership in Michigan with 36 units there as well. So a little bit all over the map, but we love the Southeast. We love the Sun Belt for various reasons. I'm sure you guys are just as well aware. I mean, it's a good place to buy. It's a good place to rent for the tenants, and the economy is nice. The tax benefits are nice as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. The great areas.
Yeah, the Southeast is definitely the growth engine of this country. I mean, certainly there's always going to be some growth out west. It depends upon, if people are paying attention to the tax situation. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of growth in California these days with the crazy taxes. And, it's a beautiful state, but the tax situation is nuts. And you've got all kinds of not only businesses, but also people leaving California. So,
and not only that, Richard, but your ability as an owner to see a successful business plan through to completion is very, very difficult over there. When we talk about tenant rights and ability for you to hold somebody's feet to the fire, if you will, or to provide ramifications for skipped rent and stuff. This is very difficult to do on the West Coast, and it's easier to do on the East Coast. It's a simple truth.
Yeah, that's one of our key criteria. We look for landlord friendly states. Not that we're trying to have an unfair advantage. We, but at the same point in time, just as residents, tenants have rights, owners have rights too. I mean, a
Yes.
lease is a contract, and we're expected as owners to provide a quality place to live, and then residents are expected to pay rent. Imagine that,
Yeah, exactly.
but at the same point in time, like you said, there are ramifications if you don't pay rent, and it's not a free pass. I mean, the freedom doesn't come free, as we say. There's we live in a free country, but at the same point in time, when you sign a lease, that's a contract, and you need to do your part.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So Ricardo, think back to your maybe your mortgage days. Did you say it was Citigroup that you worked for?
Correct.
Yeah, maybe your mortgage days, or perhaps some of your days in the Air Force. Was there something that a funny story you encountered along the way that something you can share that kind of made you scratch your head?
Yeah. It wasn't. It's kind of funny, but it's also one of those like eye opener type stories that really helped me realize, like, hey, maybe this is not something that I'm going to do for the next 20 or 30 years, because I want my life and I want to live. So. There I was. It was 2016. I was a brand new first assignment instructor pilot stationed at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi. I was tasked to go fly with a student. We'll keep him nameless for now. And he had difficulties recovering from a spin. I'm not going to go into too many of the technical or the minutia of this, but he had difficulties recovering from a spin. You would put the aircraft in like an attitude of 45 degrees nose high, you'd pull the power all the way back to idle, and you'd wait for the aircraft to stall. And it's an uncomfortable feeling. Like most human beings don't like this feeling. It's your vestibular system doesn't like it. Your fight or flight starts to kick in. And anyways, because of that, he was so nervous that he could never do the spin correctly. And he would begin to do erratic things in the airplane, and it would scare the heck out of the instructor pilots. So all the more experienced and senior instructor pilots came up to me one day and they were like, hey, LT, it was short for lieutenant. Like, hey, LT, you're flying with this guy for the next couple of sorties. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. The mantra and the expectation as a new LT was you pretty much did everything. You were the brand new guy. You made popcorn, you made coffee, you swept the floors, and you flew 2 or 3 times a day. And oh, by the way, if we're telling you you're flying on the weekend, you're flying on the weekend too. So that was the name of the game. So in true fashion, I said, all right, bring him on, So I go up flying with this guy, and he scares the living daylights out of me. And he tried to go up for a spin. He could not recover. I took the aircraft. You would shake to take. You would shake the stick to take the aircraft if in the event you couldn't communicate two-way with him. And he was just white knuckling the stick. He panicked. He didn't know what to do. We had lost like 6,000 or 7,000 feet of altitude, which we should not have in the MOA, or the military operating area. And I finally recovered the aircraft a couple thousand feet above the floor of the MOA. And I had one of those Fitbit watches on at the time. And it thought that I was working out. It said something like, hey, great workout, keep it up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get this plane on the ground.
You have climbed 700 flights of stairs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've done 10,000 steps, I'm like, my heart rate represented that. And so I recovered the aircraft, and he, we're both just breathing heavily, and there's silence in the cockpit. And he says, sir? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you want me to try that again? And I said, no, I do not. But with everything I had in me, I had to tell him, yes, we have to do it, because I had a mission that I needed to accomplish. And this is where I'm getting at with this quick story is in the military, in the Air Force in particular, you have a mission, you have to go accomplish it, regardless of what it looks like along the way. And for me, those best practices that I translate and bring over from the military, from missionizing a concept and preparing for airspace requirements as we go into battle, is something that I bring to multifamily, is something that I bring to acquiring a business. And that is, if you're meticulous, if you demonstrate action, if you're disciplined, if you're not going to let excuses get in the way, or small obstacles get in the way, you can achieve exactly what you want to achieve. Don't let anybody tell you can't. And money, not having the money, is not an obstacle. You can get past that. So anyways, a little bit of a funny story that had two meanings for me. One, I absolutely have some best practices that I can share and bring to the civilian sector and do some different things. And two, I don't want to die early, so maybe I'll go do something different. Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, you maybe kind of touched on it there, Ricardo, but what was a deciding factor in changing paths? I mean, you obviously spent a lot of time and effort to go down the flying route, and then, but it sounds like you and your business partner always been interested in finance on one angle. So it was a thing that just one day you decided to go into real estate, and how'd you pick real estate, and how'd you guys decide to go down a separate path?
Yeah. It was about 2.5 years ago that we thought we need to have a little bit more velocity of our capital. Our money needs to be moving faster than what it is right now. And that came about, Bill, because we saw other people making good money. We saw other people spending time on the things that they wanted to spend time on. I knew several mentors of mine in the late 2018, 19 that retired early. We're talking like late 30s, early 40s because of financial freedom. And here I looked at myself and I looked at my portfolio and I said, man, I'm dumping a lot of cash into a vehicle that is going to allow for me to see the fruits of that labor not until my 60s. And I thought, man, this is, for some, it's fine and I get it. But for me, I want to be able to kind of enjoy that right now. You know, I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in a TSP, which is like it's a thrift savings plan or 401k equivalent. Yeah. And I had a conversation after reading a book by Bill Ham called Creative Cash. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and he was telling me, you know, well, can you pull any money out of your TSP? And he didn't know the requirements of it and the penalties. I said, no, I can't. And he said, well, when can you? And I said, well, it's going to take me like another 35 or 40 years before I can do that. And it dawned on me, they're like, damn, that's a long time for me to wait for this. Is there a way for me to have my cake and eat it too, if you will? And yes, the answer is there is. And I know that. And I know you guys know that. And I know your listeners know that. It's just a matter of taking the action. So it was through the velocity of capital and seeing other people achieve that financial freedom early. The fact that we're audacious and I'm audacious enough to go down that path to try to achieve it myself. And it's rooted in spending more time with my family. It's rooted in spending time with my 14-year-old daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, my wife, because the military shows you many things. Not one of them, and in particular, is that you're not really in control of your own time. And if they ask me to go deploy tomorrow, I say yes, and I salute smartly like a good airman. And there's nothing wrong with that. The country needs that. But in my case in particular, what I am after is being my own boss, is being in control of my own time, because that's where I'm able to affect the majority of my impact on my sphere of influence, my family, my friends. So that's kind of where it stemmed and what motivates me.
That's excellent.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like I said, we talked about this before a lot, you know, that's in another job, another career, you know, a 14-hour, 16-hour day, you know, may seem long, but when you're doing your own business and your own job, it's just different. I mean, you enjoy it. You're building something for the future. It's, you know, things planted now to bear the fruit later. Absolutely.
Yep. There's a quote. It says, "Pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work," and there's something true about that, right? Like I am not naive to the fact that I'm not just doing this. There are a lot of people out there, rather, who do this to check a box, and that box is $10 million net worth, $50,000 cash flow per month, or whatever the goal is, right? Whatever tangible or quantifiable goal it is. That's fine and dandy. That's okay. But if you get to a state where you enjoy the journey, then the outcome is automatic. Then the result will occur. And I feel very comfortable where I'm at right now. I like raising capital. I like syndicating a multifamily deal. I like identifying a business to buy at a good multiple, and I like real estate. And those things are real estate's going to be around for a very long time. And it's a tremendous secured asset that I'd bet every day, twice on Sunday, versus trying to go do any Bitcoin or anything else that is not as secured. And so, yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer, Bill. And I think it dawned on me a couple of years ago that I do love doing this. And that's the reason that I'm making this transition.
That's great. Yep. That's a great reason.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that real estate is something physical, something tangible. It's amazing, compared to, I mean, a stock is a piece of paper. Bitcoin, you're right. Bitcoin's an idea. I think the concept has a lot of validity to it, especially with the, money printing that's been going on. But at the same point in time, it's still not quite tangible, So
Correct.
definitely the idea of real estate and the tax advantages that are part of it are incredible. So,
Oh yeah.
I mentioned before the show, my father-in-law had been in the service, and my dad had been, and as well, and whatnot. But again, my mother-in-law, I'm sure you've heard this before. Last decision when you join the military, the last decision you make is whether you're going to join.
That's right.
And from there forward, you don't control your destiny. But again, that's a necessary thing. And, obviously we thank you for your service. And at the same point in time, we're so thankful that there are men and women that are willing to do this job to, serve the country and provide protection against our, foreign enemies, et cetera. So, again, it's a needed thing, but it's not an easy job at all.
No, it's not. And none of this is a knock on that at all. It requires a special person. And, thank God we do have so many men and women, airmen, Marine soldiers and sailors, Coast Guardsmen, and now Guardians for Space Force that step up to the plate, that literally put their lives on the line for their brothers and sisters. And because of that, we are able to function in an economy, in a society in which we can have an entrepreneurial spirit. We can walk outside and decide, I want to buy that apartment complex. I'm going to go put an offer in on it, and nobody's going to tell me I can't. And you may have some challenges along the way, but what a great country that we live in where we can do that. And so I always remember that, and I go back to that because it's a beautiful thing. Absolutely.
Again, freedom isn't free, but again, it's so worth it. So yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So Ricardo, actually, you touched on the next topic briefly. Obstacles. Is there, as you were kind of really getting going, you mentioned that you were thinking you were going to buy a single family house a year, and then you realized you needed to change. As you were kind of maybe making that change, were there some obstacles you encountered along the way?
Yeah, most definitely. I think the first obstacle was the sheer difference in price and numbers from buying a single family to multifamily. That scares a lot of people. And it scares them for many reasons, in my opinion. And here's a couple of the at face value first things that pop up in your mind. Number one, generally, a lot of folks don't understand leverage. And so when you think, when I would tell certain buddies of mine, hey, I bought a 14-unit apartment complex for a little under $1 million, they somehow think that I'm coming out of pocket with $500,000 or $600,000 to buy this thing, or maybe even more. Right.
Yeah.
Little did they know I was able to secure a good loan from the bank at a 75 LTV with great terms, fixed debt for a long period of time. And I was going in it with my business partner. So really and truly, I was in for it at 12.5%. And my business partner was 12.5. When people understand this concept and understand the data or the information behind it, it helps you wrap your mind around it a little bit easier, and it's more digestible. So the first obstacle for me was the knowledge and the numbers. I looked at a duplex or a single family for $210,000 here in Tucson. This is circa 2020. And I thought, oh, okay. I had worked with VA loans with zero down, and I thought maybe we can get an FHA. I was just in the dark, just, reaching for straws here, trying to figure out how we could do this, and landed on, it's 20% down. So I thought, okay, 20% of $210,000 is roughly $42,000. That's doable. I have 20. My business partner had 20. We could do that. And that's the first pitfall you get stuck in, which is that's the easy route. That's the easy button. The easy button is to use everything you have right now. The more difficult button that has a greater return is, let's push ourselves just a little bit. If this is really a good deal, and we can show others that this is a good deal as well, we can lock our shields together, if you will, and we can take down something larger. And so that was the first lesson that I learned. And really, it's like it starts with podcasts. It starts with books. It starts with conversations, talking to people who are thinking on another level, right? I love the quote, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So get into different rooms. And I was the smartest person in my room. I'm not a very smart guy, but I was the smartest person in those rooms. And I thought, all right, Ricardo, I got to get out. I got to go to talk to other people in other rooms. And I did just that. So it was a bit of action. It was audacity. And it was literally listening to hours of podcasts and books that helped me breach that gap in the general knowledge and in the sheer number difference that helped me kind of get past that first obstacle.
Yeah, one of the things we always talk about is that again, education is super important. Again, you got to know what you're talking about if you want to be taken seriously by other people in the market, whether it be brokers, whether it be property managers, whether it be attorneys, whatever. You got to know what you're talking about. So learn what you're talking about. Learn your space, learn the language, but at the same point in time, you still have to do something with it. Education is great, but we know some people that are super smart and are book smart, but haven't taken action, which is, you got to kind of move it forward and take action.
Yes. And in fact, oftentimes the person who takes more action, but is not as smart, is the one who prevails there.
Right.
Because you can, there's a book I read recently called Buy Then Build. And essentially, there are 3 A's that this author speaks to. And one of them is attitude. The second one is action. And the third one is aptitude. And if you have some bit of those, you don't have to have a full can of those, right? But if you have some bit of all those, and I would say, in my mind, action and attitude are going to trump aptitude even. Because where you're weak in aptitude, you can partner with somebody else who's strong there, but not as strong in the attitude or action category.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. We say a lot too. I forget Jim Rohn or who had the actual quote, but is your network is your net worth is your network. Basically saying your 5 closest friends. But I think I think again what you're talking about earlier, the ideas, right? They're playing at different levels, and it gets you thinking at different levels and what's possible. And like you said, even the reference you made earlier about one of your mentors retired in their 30s, and you just see it's possible, right? It's no longer something you read, but you know these people now, and you discuss ideas and businesses, and it's the reticular activating system. I know is brought up a lot too. That when you buy the red pickup truck, all of a sudden you see all the red pickup trucks. Well, they're always there. You just it wasn't important to you before, and you filtered them out your mind. So I think it's very interesting that we hear people time and time again say that as they move up and scale up, it just, the ideas are just more plentiful because that's what you're focused on.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I love that now. And the second obstacle that I think comes up sometimes is you tend to find yourself in different rooms now where a lot of people are a lot smarter than you are, and they're talking about concepts that are perhaps over your head. And to those I say, be meticulous about that. Like the first time I picked up the book Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, I must have been like 18. I read that book. I didn't know half of what Benjamin Graham was talking about. It was like a Bible to me that was foreign, And I thought, what are all these concepts? P and E, what's a cap rate? Like I didn't understand any of that. And so my takeaway with surrounding myself with these people who are on another level is I say to myself, Ricardo, take away a couple of notes. If there's a concept that they're speaking of that you don't understand, write that down. Go YouTube it. Really, I'd be at the gym these days and I YouTube something, how to, perform a waterfall in a syndication or something, or how to look at that. And after 10 minutes, you have a much more solid understanding of things. And so there are really no excuses these days. Technology is at our fingertips. And you couple that with talking to the right people, and they're gonna lift you up. You're gonna lift them up as well. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Well, as you look back, Ricardo, can you think what would like one of your first victories that really solidified that this was the right choice, the right path to pursue?
Yeah. So it's our first purchase. It was we bought a 14-unit apartment complex here in Tucson, Arizona, right outside of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And we purchased it for $970,000. It was about a 6.4 cap at the time. And average rents were around $700. It was our very first purchase. We had gone into contract on others and fell out for a couple of different reasons, some within our control, some not. And the reason I say it was the biggest win was because more so than the equity multiple we got at the disposition of that asset, was the fact that we proved to ourselves that we could do it, was the fact that we started day one where the rubber meets the road in managing that asset and partnering with the property managers. and better understanding how the tenants lived and what we could do to better their experience, better their living conditions, while ensuring that our net operating income went up. It was speaking frequently about our balance sheet and what that looked like, profit and loss. It was more confidence with the broker when I ask him, or he asks me what my criteria for buying a property is. I had a leg to stand on. Not that I didn't before, I did, but it was not a tried and true leg, if you will. It was one that was theory based. I had read a lot. So my first win, and I believe for many people, whether it's as profitable or not, is your first deal, is the action that you take to accomplish, to go into contract and to close on that first deal. I was on top of the world. I was so excited on our first deal, and I look back on it now, and I still pass by it every once in a while, and it's nostalgia, because I look at it and I say, man, we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that place, and we've exited now, and we left with a good amount, but it's the pride and joy,
Mm-hmm.
You go back and you realize a lot of the lessons that you learned, and these are lessons that you aren't necessarily going to find in a book. It's real life lessons.
Yeah, that's exactly our point. Yeah, I've said that before too, that you could study for 10 years, and that we talk about taking action, right? The analysis paralysis. You can try to read, and everybody's, and from being a pilot, there's a lot of studying involved in doing what you're doing, a lot of memorization. But again, you'll never know what you need to know until you'll learn more of that first deal than you were ever reading,
Yes,
chapter after chapter on books. So it's like I said, making that first initial jump into the actual battlefield, and if you will, it makes all the difference.
That's right. You just got to do it sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ricardo, in your apartment world now that you're moving into, and you're doing, and as well as moving forward into, is there a funny story you can share?
Oh, let's see. In the apartment world, a funny story. Yeah, we got a little one. This was before our first deal. I cold called a lot of different brokers and owners. I got a hold of an owner here in town, and he owns probably 250 units. And we found this one 11 unit that he owned, and I cold called him one evening, and he was a little bit sarcastic, and he says, "Are you an investor or a broker?" And I said, I'm an investor. And he said, "All right, what are you going to pay me for my 11 unit?" And I didn't know at the time, like I was super wet behind the ears, like I didn't know. I needed to see the P&L. I needed to see a rent roll. So I stuttered and stammered on the phone for a moment, thinking, man, I am a rookie talking to this guy right now. What is happening? I wanted to hang up on him and be like, "Oh, what am I doing? I'm an imposter, And I said, "Well, sir," I said, "I want to be fair to you, and I want to be respectful of the casitas, the 11 casitas. So can you meet me out?" And I went back to a sales campaign. I went back to take control of the conversation, Ricardo. Don't let him take control of everything. And I asked a pointed question, and I said, "Can I meet you there tomorrow at noon?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll be there." I said, "Oh, okay, nice." So I was like, crisis averted. I was about to tell him I'd offer him $2 million on his 11 unit and be way overpriced and shoot myself in the foot immediately. So he ended up not showing up the next day, which is fine. He's a really busy guy. We went into contract. I did not know anything about a purchase and sale agreement or what an LOI looked like. So as I fumbled my way through a little bit of not the due diligence, but the escrow period in general, we fell out of contract because the DSCR on the deal was too low, and I didn't know to provide a pro forma. And so I didn't know which bank to talk to and how to talk to them and to demonstrate to them that while the DSCR is at a 0.9 right now, I'm going to get it to a 1.3 in this period of time, and here's how my business plan works. So it's kind of funny, but it's kind of sad too, in that at the end of the deal, or at the end of a couple of weeks, I had to call Scott up, the owner, and I said, "Listen, Scott," I said, "we're in our due diligence period, and I'm not going to be able to make this deal happen, man." And he laughed at me on the phone, and he laughed and he said, "Ricardo, he said, it's kind of funny, but it's also not funny, because you got to learn these lessons, and you got to move on, and you got to figure it out." Well, I look back on it and I laugh sometimes, and I think I just do so psychologically because it brings me back to a place where I'm like, okay, it's okay. But we lost a lot of money on that deal. We had that under contract for 11 units for $540,000, and that later sold for $1 million, and it sold later only 11 months later, so it doubled. So I say it's funny. It's kind of not funny, but I look back on it and try to laugh about it because I was such a rookie. But it just goes to show you that you are going to have to take some action to better understand these things. If you never take that action, you may not get those lessons learned. And we're better when we're prepared for Jefferson Avenue Apartments after we fell out of the deal on those 11.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we look back, one of our early deals we chased. We had solid underwriting. We had everything lined up. We thought we were all ready to go. And unfortunately, we missed a key piece of the criteria just around, the demographics in terms of the average income for the area. We were how are we going to raise, the average income is $30,000. How are we going to raise the rents $100 or $125? It's going to be a little bit unaffordable for the people in that particular market. So we were in the wrong market. And that was a lesson we had to learn. So, yeah,
that's huge. It's not all just about the building, right? It's not all. It's about the people that you have there. What are they making on a yearly basis? And that's a really good point you bring up, Richard, because that's not something that we really took we paid a lot of attention to until we started to syndicate. It's easy to take a deal down yourself. You can overlook a lot of the minutia and perhaps make a more emotional decision if it's just your money. But when you have 10 people on a deal, 20 people, you have a fiduciary responsibility to then look and to then use a more fine-tooth comb. So yeah, that's a real good point. You got to look at everything.
Yeah,
absolutely. Ricardo, where are you today on your journey? You're talking about the 11-plex, the 14-plex. You mentioned a laundromat you bought. So where are you now, and where's your future look like it's headed?
Yeah. So after our 14, we sold that 1031, exchanged that into a 25 unit in Columbia, South Carolina, completely off market. Really good deal. Taking average rents from $650 to $1,059, in some cases $1,100. So really, really nice. We syndicated a 30 unit in Columbia as well. We syndicated a 16 unit. It was a bit of a small syndication for us. Significant lessons learned there. And we raised capital now for a couple of different proven operators that we've done business with before, whereby we are equity holders in these apartments, asset management fee, acquisition fee, really nice operators. You can't. There's so much to be said about working with a solid operator who you can trust and whose underwriting is strict and who will only make an offer when it meets very strict criteria. And we pride ourselves on working with a couple of different folks who do that. We are raising capital for a short-term rental fund currently, which is really nice, a conglomeration of Airbnbs around the U.S. And more recently, I say we're playing with house money because I love that concept. We bought a laundromat here in town with an SBA loan. Word of the wise, you never want to do an SBA loan again. It's really, really difficult.
Arduous.
Yeah, super arduous. But we secured a 90% LTV, so 10% down, which is tremendous.
Nice.
We got it at a slamming deal to essentially an additional $230,000 in equity on day one for the real estate, and an additional $30,000 in equity based on the business valuation. So we're doing that. We're close to contract on a larger business in Las Vegas, which is a cleaners, and we are slightly pivoting to businesses right now. The return on investment is significantly greater. And what we aim to do is to take profits and proceeds from the businesses and continue to funnel those into multifamily over a period of time.
Nice.
And that coupled with still having fun flying airplanes is we're enjoying ourselves. So no complaints on our end, and we're successfully managing the assets that we have across the U.S. And despite what is happening with the economy right now, we're still able to see some slight rent increases. And we're just very careful with financing right now because, as you know, the prime interest rate is extremely high, and it's a bit of a volatile environment. We're very fortunate to have locked in fixed debt that we have in and around 3.875 to 4% on our assets over the last year on
Nice.
5 to 7 year terms. So hopefully that's long enough for us to kind of wait out the storm a little bit. But I do have a heart for the folks who are coming due here very shortly, whose loans are ballooning and they got to figure something out.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been incredibly volatile. We've seen just quotes from talking to other people too on, cap rates. If they've 10x'd from what they were, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Just the pricing on that it's off the charts. Yeah.
Oh, it really is. And it's interesting, right? I know a lot of folks who are getting as liquid as possible right now to be in a state to buy something at a really low price. So there's a lot of different theories out there, but I think the next year will demonstrate a lot. I think one thing is for certain, though, if you're going to be successful in multifamily, you cannot be wishy-washy. You have to stay the course. And if you hold a real estate asset for a long period of time, you will prevail. You will see the fruits of your labor.
Right.
If you try to play this flip game right now, it's gonna hurt you, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Ricardo, as you think about what you're doing now, you and your business partner, is there something you do personally or perhaps through your business that you do to give back to help others?
Yeah, most definitely. I think the big thing there, Richard, for me is when I grew up, I didn't grow up with a lot of financial education. No knock on my parents. It's not what they knew. And they didn't really instill that. I remember asking my mom and dad questions about their finances when I was 6 or 7, and my mom would say, "That's none of your business. Don't look at that," Or my dad would be doing his balancing his checkbook on Sunday mornings, I remember, and I'd say, "Hey, Dad, how much money do we have in the checking account?" He said, "You don't ask Dad those questions." So I've made it a point to try to give back in the form of financial education to friends and family. I try to bring people in who have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, who are interested in learning more. And we hold monthly meetups, whether it's in Tucson or in South Carolina, where Pat is at, with a small group of friends. We talk to them about what we got going on. I'm very communicative on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, where I'm open to people outside of just friends and family who are interested in learning a little bit more. Having that knowledge is one of the first steps in paving the way for bettering your future from a financial perspective. And I wish I would have learned that earlier. And so for me to give back, it means helping my nephew out, who's 16 years old, and showing him some of the numbers of the business, or taking my daughter to the laundromat after a Friday pizza we grabbed together and counting some coins and showing her the hard work that you put in, that small businesses put in, not Wall Street, but Main Street, in terms of how we're stimulating the economy. So love to do that. I volunteer at a local animal sanctuary with the family, so we give back from that perspective. We love helping birds and animals out around here in Tucson who get abandoned, who need to find a good home. So yeah, a little bit of everything. I try to stay busy. I'm not the type of guy who just sits at home and watches TV. I can't be doing that.
Good, nice,
excellent. Well, Ricardo, is there something you've recently implemented in your business that's helped you scale?
So I think just the review and the execution on purchasing businesses as opposed to assets is helping us scale in a manner that allows for us to have the liquidity and the expansion account or expansion funds that my business partner and I call it, in order to continue to buy things. It's that snowball effect. But I would say one of the largest things is not so attached to either a business or multifamily, but it's cultivating a mindset in you that is perhaps the most powerful thing that you can do. And so the mindset that I use, Bill, is one that is open to networking, not in a manner that I'm expecting anything in return, not a reciprocating relationship, but one in which I can speak to somebody, attempt to provide value, and regardless of whether they give me any value back or not, that's a moot point. I don't really care about that. And so one way that we have scaled, and this is implemented over the last year, and we've been very determined and assertive about it, is try to help as many people as possible. provide opportunities for investment, and help others grow whatever they seem to be doing, whatever they're working on. And by doing so, you will scale your business as well. You will scale your network. And when you have a larger network, you'd be surprised. I'm sure you guys feel this as well. You get people reach out and they're like, hey, Bill, Richard, how do I invest? I've got this much money from the sale of my home, and I'm not going to do anything with it. It's going to burn a hole in my pocket. And then we marry their $50,000 or $100,000 investment to a deal. That makes me feel really good. I feel Absolutely. As though I can help move the needle for other people when I do that. I think when we go back to it, it's through the cultivated mindset of abundance, in that we'll find the deal, we'll find the money, just work on helping other people out, and we'll all move forward in the same direction.
That's great.
There's an awesome Zig Ziglar quote. It's something along the lines of, you can get everything you want out of life if you just help enough other people get what they want out of life. So,
love that.
Yeah,
absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The people who are so focused just on themselves and doing what they want to do, perhaps you're going to find some success and stuff. But there's another quote. If you want to go, if you might help me out here, go together. If you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. Something like that. But the reality of it is we can do a lot more if we partner together. And
right.
It's an abundance and sharing generosity that connects to progress and success for me. And that's how I connected in my mind.
Yep. Very nice. Ricardo, what advice would you share with somebody who's considering making a path change?
Yeah, I would say the biggest advice is you have to take some form of definitive action. And by definitive action, I do not mean just reading a book or listening to podcasts. It may sound like I'm speaking out both ends of my mouth here, because I mentioned that earlier in the podcast. The action that I speak of is that same action to go into contract on a deal, is the same action at a lesser scale to set up a meeting with somebody who knows how to underwrite, and you learn how to do that. You have to take some sort of action if you expect to achieve the results that you're looking for. And the caveat to that is this: you've got to put yourself in a little bit of an uncomfortable position. If you're feeling comfort, if you're feeling relaxed, it's probably not synonymous with progress. You have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you take action and you have that mentality, I promise you will see success. However that is defined. It could be in money, it could be in time, it could be in progress or relationship building. But just do that. And when you do that, write it down. Write down what you want to achieve, why you want to achieve it, and continue to remind yourself of that. I have a dry erase board in my garage, and on that dry erase board, I have my goals plotted out. And every week I look back at those goals every Sunday to better assess where I'm at, how I'm making progress. And you'd be surprised, things fall off. They fall off, out of sight, out of mind. They're not on your mind. And so by reminding myself every week of that, I put it back at the front of my mind and I begin to work on that. So write down those things, take action, get uncomfortable. You'll see some progress.
Nice.
Great. Yep. Well, Ricardo, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out and learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, thanks. Vectoredequity.com is our website. You can find me, Ricardo Torres, on LinkedIn, and then we're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Vectored Equity. And the plug that I want to say there is please reach out. Any question is a good question, and we'll respond. It'll be myself or Patrick Revin, my business partner. You can email us at ricardo@vectoredequity.com as well. But would love to share my lessons learned, what I've gone through, in hopes that I could perhaps help you, the listener, not do the same thing and get to a better state at step one than we were at step one.
Nice.
Excellent. We'll add those notes, or add those to the show notes, the links. Well, Ricardo, we really want to appreciate you being on the, really want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show today. Really enjoyed the conversation. We want to wish you continued success.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ricardo, for being on. We'd also like to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like our show today with Ricardo Torres. And we'd also like to remind everybody about 2 things that Park Capital Partners has going on. First, we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund open today to accredited investors. And then next, we have the Park Capital Partners Foundation, which is a 5013c nonprofit that we created to give back. The way that works very quickly is first we give first of all we fund the operations of that charity so that all the money donated goes to do its best work, which is to help others. Second, we donate personally. Third, we donate corporately. And finally, when investors invest with us in one of our projects, we make a donation to honor them to a donation from 15 pre-selected charities, including Wounded Warrior and other various charities, so that people can feel good about investing as well as doing something to help others. So again, thank you for joining. Ricardo, again, we appreciate you being on. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.